How's it going this week, everybody? So we having Jay on this week, and he came on to tell me a really interesting story about a man that he saw disappear. And we did an episode like this way back when the show came out. It was called The Mysterious Man in the Desert, and it was about a similar situation where this guy that just didn't seem like he belonged came out of nowhere, and it just is really interesting to think about this kind of stuff and get these stories out there. So, by the way, just wanted to give a shout out to all of our members. Thanks for signing up for the membership. I really appreciate it. You really help out the show and keep it going. If you guys want to check out the membership, you get access to episodes 2 weeks before they come out over at challengetheunknown.com. Thanks for listening. You and I have been playing phone tag for like the last week, but I finally got you on, and I'm excited for you to tell your story. So why don't you start from the beginning and tell me what happened?
Sure, and happy Friday the 13th. Yeah,
it is Friday the 13th.
It's very apropos of the day for this kind of a story, I think. All right, yeah. So it's a little bit of a different story. I would guess, not your usual sort of happening or encounter or whatever you want to call it. So this happened. It's been about a month, I'd say, a month ago. It starts out pretty normal. Scheduled to get myself a flu shot. It was at a clinic that I've been to, I want to say like 3 or 4 times before. So I knew the place, but, it was, not super familiar to me. Nothing unusual happened that day. Just headed out after work to get my shot at the appointed time. Being that, coronavirus is, still pretty much a thing, they had a large tent sort of set up as like a staging area right outside the front doors to get everybody registered, screened, do thermometer checks. Basically they're trying to prevent anybody that had the Rona from going into the building. So I got there, just a little bit early. I head towards the tent. I see this sign. The sign, said that they were going to be right back. They weren't, quite ready yet. I assume it was like the night shift, needed to come in and take over. So myself, maybe half a dozen other people were just kind of hanging out, ambling around outside this tent, waiting for the go-ahead to go ahead and enter. So it was just a couple minutes after I'd been waiting around, and this gentleman kind of makes a beeline for the tent. The first thing I guess I noticed about him is he was kind of dressed a little bit different. I mean, not super strange. I guess the best way I could describe it is it reminded me of maybe like party attire from the 90s. So it's just like kind of darker colored slacks, a button-up shirt that was dark in color and had just kind of brightly colored sort of lines of polka dot. So it, nothing super weird, but just a little bit odd.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he he kind of blows right past the sign. I mean, I would kind of think like he would see that we're all standing outside the tent and that the lights are off inside the tent, and just kind of figure like, you know, maybe they're not ready. But instead, he just kind of blows past the sign. He walks straight up to someone that had just barely sat down in there, was just getting a laptop set up and a little printing machine. Just kind of walked right up to her, and you know, she didn't think too much of it. She just, you know, told him the obvious, that they weren't quite set up yet. It'd just be a couple minutes, and asked him to take a seat in the tent. So he did so. Just took a couple minutes longer, and we all were finally let in. You know, run through a series of questions. You know, have we, you know, do we have coronavirus? You know,
right.
Obvious questions, or, you know, had our temperature read, you know, just a brief little screening and an orientation as far as, you know, where to go in the building, and, you know, instructions to maintain distancing and common sense stuff. So, he, being that he was the first in the tent, he was the first let in. I was right behind him by, I don't know, no more than 1 or 2 minutes at the most, I would say. We proceed down the hall. He was set up in the chair before I was. I was led into a room that had been kind of, it looked like like it was a converted recreation room or something. Like they converted it by adding some QBs for the purposes of administering these vaccines. Normally, they would do that kind of stuff in one of like the offices, but I think they did this to sort of manage the flow of people better. So I get led into that room. He's sitting down, getting his shot done. I don't know if he was a doctor or a nurse, or but whoever was sitting with him seemed a little bit, I don't know if frustrated is the right word, but just a little bit flustered with the guy from the get-go. Like maybe they're having a problem communicating, or maybe he was afraid of needles. I don't know. But it just struck me as slightly weird. Not, you know, nothing super strange going on as far as I could tell.
Right. So to recount up till this point, you're getting a flu shot and you're going through the COVID screening area, and there's this one guy that's dressed in 90s attire that blows past everybody, and then when everybody finally gets in, the doctor or nurse or whatever, they're clearly having some kind of thing going on where they're acting a little weird.
Yeah, just a little off, you know. I mean, nothing super strange or very, very weird happened. Just everything about him just seemed, you know, slightly askew from, you know, full-on normalcy. So I am led around to the other side of these cubicles. I have no difficulty getting my shot done. The guy gives me a pirate Band-Aid.
Beautiful. Just what I want.
Yeah. And another thing that happened, again, that's just a little bit askew, is I actually finished with my shot before the other guy, even though he had to have been, you know, at least a full, you know, 60 seconds to 2 minutes ahead of me. Because as I stood up, he just then started to come around the wall. And so we both kind of were headed at towards the exit on the other side of this room at the same time. I kind of paused to, just let him go ahead of me. Before he walked out the door, there was a sort of laminated, brightly colored piece of paper just saying, like exit here or something to that effect. Just pointing out the way to go. He paused just for the briefest moment to look at it and just seemed confused by it. To me, it's one of those things that's just so obvious that you don't even really, you barely consciously register it, It's one of those day-to-day things that you see and you just, you don't have to think about it. So he paused briefly, looked at it, and then went out the door. So I was more or less, on his heels. I mean, I wasn't really trying to keep pace with him or follow him exactly, but I didn't linger around that room. I walked out right after him. So coming out of this room, there were signs that pointed you to the left. So I headed left, and you went about, I'd say no more than 20 feet. And then you had to make another left. So I wouldn't imagine that he would be too far ahead of me at this point. But as I come around that other left, I enter a hall that is, I would say about 25 yards long, and it's empty. So again, that struck me as a little bit odd because I would have expected to see him, just ahead of me.
Right. He wasn't too far ahead of you, so you'd expect when you rounded that corner that he'd be somewhere in front of you.
Right. I mean, even if he were walking particularly briskly, I would say you'd have to full-on sprint, maybe, to get to that end of the hall and out the door without it being noticeable. And with it being such an empty hall, it was very quiet, kind of one of those situations where you could hear a pin drop, and I didn't hear any rushed movement, but there it was, empty hall. So I already thought, that was a little odd. Now, about midway down this hall, so, approximately, 12 to 14 yards, the entire sort of layout of the hall sort of takes a jog to the left. So there's like where it does this, there's a corner, just a small little bend. So I proceed down the hall, just normal walking pace. In this hall, there's only two doors. So one is about just a couple feet, 3, 4 feet maybe, before this corner. The other one is way down at the end of the hall next to the exit, and that door leads into a sort of it's like a little waiting room. That's normally where they process patients and stuff. It's just like a waiting room that could probably accommodate, maybe 20 people. Just a little waiting room. So I start walking. I get about 10, 15 feet or so. And all of a sudden there he is. From around this corner, he reaches out, grabs the corner and pops out, leans out from this corner with this sort of somewhat intense expression on his face. It was a little bit hard to tell because, he was wearing a mask like everybody else.
Right.
But he just very suddenly, just quickly pops out. And the way I describe it is like he was looking for somebody, or, maybe lost. That's how I consciously sort of process that is, well, maybe he got turned around. Well, he wasn't, though. He was heading precisely the right direction to leave. So I just thought that was very strange. He just very suddenly popped out like that, and then I only saw him for a second or two, and he was sort of at first looking like kind of past me, and then he saw that I was looking directly at him, and at that moment he just as quickly ducked back behind the corner, which that struck me as particularly odd. It's just not something you see, some guy pop out around a corner. But I continue on down the hall, thinking that there must be like something on the other side of that corner that I'm not remembering. Like maybe there's a hall, like another hall there, or something. And he got turned around and wasn't exactly sure where he was. So I'm thinking all these things as I continue my way down the hall. I walk past the first door. The door is shut. I don't know if it's locked or anything, but I would have been able to see if he would have went into this door. So it rules that door out. I could also see clear down the end of the hall, the door that leads into that other small waiting area, which is also closed, and the lights are off in there. So there isn't really a reason to be going in there anyway. So again, just kind of processing this. I get to where the corner is, and I come around and I look at the spot where this guy popped out from behind this corner, and there's nothing really there. It's this corner. It makes a space maybe like 2 or 3 feet deep, and it continues on as just more wall until it gets to where this waiting room area is, and that has a glass wall where you can see into the waiting room. So there's nothing there. He could not have gone further down that hall. He was easily within my field of vision. So by all appearances, he popped out, popped back in, and I have no real explanation as to where he went. I looked at that spot for a moment, just expecting to see something that kind of explained it. He definitely didn't leave the building. He didn't come back the way I came from. The only other place he could have gone into would be that little waiting room. But how he would have got in there, I have no clue. And as I walked past it, it was dark in there. There was just some bleed lighting from the hall that I was in, and from a hall that's on the other side of a door where they admit you through that waiting room. And I looked, and there I didn't try to go in there. You know, I didn't think that would be a particularly wise idea, but I looked and I could see no trace of him. I looked back at the corner, nothing. There was nobody around.
So this guy, so there's a wall, right, of the hallway. And then there's a section of the wall where the wall just goes farther back by about 3 feet. And that's the corner that he popped out of and looked down the hallway and then kicked back behind. Is that right?
Yeah, that's it. So this corner, it creates this, where the hall jogs over, it just creates this small little nook, little space. I mean, it's barely enough room for a person to hide behind. And I mean, that begs another question, really, is why would you do that? Why would you be even in that spot? There's literally nothing there. There's no other door. There's nowhere for you to go. It was just very strange. I have no idea what happened to that guy. You know, and I didn't even really know exactly what to think at first. You know, I was still sort of processing that as I left. You know, and I go out to the parking lot. I keep looking behind me, looking back at the exit, looking, you know, towards the entrance. You know, did he somehow double back in a way that I just didn't realize, and he came out the wrong way? You know, I went out to my car. I waited in my car. I waited in my car for several minutes. You know, just to see if I could catch a glimpse of this guy coming out, and just, you know, to, I guess, reassure myself, like, oh, you know, I must have just misinterpreted, you know, what happened, like, but no. I never saw him again.
That's weird. So, like, the Vanishing Retro Man or something like that, you know, that's a weird one. You know, I've actually talked to a lot of people off the air. There was one other episode I did way back when I started the show over a year ago, and I think it was episode 6 or something like that. I got a guy on my show, and the episode was called Mysterious Man in the Desert, I think. And basically they were driving through, like, you know, just complete wasteland. And this guy walks out of the desert, and, like, there's no vehicles around, and it was just super weird. Like, this guy just walks out of nowhere and then disappears. And we never really had any ideas of what it could have been or why there would be a guy out there if it was just a normal dude, you know? So this isn't the first time I've heard a story like this, to be honest with you. And then I've also talked to people off the air that just never came on about weird glitch in the matrix, as some people call it, or, you know, disappearing people. So, you know, I don't know what happened to that guy. And that's really, really weird that he would just kind of vanish like that.
Yeah, it's a little, I guess, unnerving. You know, you look at a situation and you try to factor in, you know, the various possibilities, and just try to figure out, well, how likely could it have been, you know, that he could have, you know, gone this way or that way. And I mean, just and if he had gone in there to get his shot and was done and complete with that, and why didn't he leave? You know, he obviously didn't get out before I did. You know, so where was he? Where would he have been trying to go?
There's some weird people out there, man. You know, I wish that I could explain why people act weird. You know, but it doesn't explain where he went. You know, it's reasonable to see people that act unusual, or, you know, maybe he was high or something like that. But when it's something that can't be explained, where the person disappears, that I don't have an answer for you on that one. That's just weird. You know.
Yeah, I know. I've met my fair share of you know, very strange people, and haven't just, you know, been just strange behavior. I would have never thought about this guy again, but just the fact that I can't account for, you know, where he went, just makes it so very odd.
So describe again for the viewers, what was this guy wearing exactly? So give me a full breakdown of what this guy was wearing, because you said he had like some 90s retro attire.
That's kind of what it sort of reminded me of. He had, I want to say, you know, maybe dark gray slacks, some sort of, I would almost call it like, you know, realistically, I would say if it weren't for the shirt, he'd almost look business cash. Like, you know, he's got some sort of Oxford type shoes on. He's got dark slacks, but the shirt, it was just a little too, I don't know, vibrant, I'd say, a little too colorful. You know, it's not, I mean, it could conceivably be, but it's not what you'd expect usually to be worn that way. So it's a kind of a darker colored shirt. I want to say either purple or blue, and it has just rows of you know, differently colored polka dots, like green, yellow, orange. So, you know, kind of what I would call a little bit of a not super loud shirt, but it's got noise.
Right. It's pretty funky. Noise, pretty funky to be wearing with your business casual get up. It's weird.
So it just seemed to, it just kind of reminds me of like some of the patterns and colors, you know, that I would see from the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we might not want to judge this mysterious vanishing man's clothing choices, because once I saw a man wearing a t-shirt that had Emilia Clarke photoshopped faces all over the entire shirt, like hundreds of her face all over his shirt. So there are some people with very unusual fashion choices, but
yeah, certainly people wear definitely stranger things.
Right.
It just seems, you know, a little outside the norm. Not that it was looked bad or anything.
Right.
It looked perfectly fine. It was just a little outside of what I would expect. Nothing he really did. Well, except for disappearing. Everything else was just a little off. Just a little off, not super strange until poof. It seems like he kind of vanished. That was more than a little off.
That would really screw with me a little bit for a while. I'd really try and figure out where that guy went, and I would just go over it again and again in my head, trying to figure it out if I could, you know, rationalize how it happened. But it doesn't sound like there's really a lot of options there for you to do that. It's been a month, and I've tried to re-examine it and think about it and theorize about it. But as more time goes by, memories start to slip a little bit. I originally, wrote all this story down almost right after it happened, because for that very reason, I wanted to get it down while I had as many details as possible sort of fresh in my mind. So, I don't know if I'll ever get the opportunity to, go into that particular clinic again. But if I do, you gotta look around.
I try to look around and, look over my shoulder and half expect him to like pop out and say, "Here I am."
100%, man. Well, Jay, honestly, man, that was a great story, and I'm glad you came on and told it while it was still fresh in your mind. And unless you got anything else for me, I think we're pretty much ready to wrap up. If you are.
I mean, my life it's had a lot of strange happenings, but maybe some other time. I can dig up some of the other. I have some I have some stories that are equally as strange, possibly stranger.
100%.
Scarier.
Yeah, let's link up. Let's link up again, because I enjoyed having you on. This was a great episode, and we're actually just peaking at 30 minutes right on the dot right now. But yeah, let's do another episode, man. I'll hit you up right after we stop all this, and we'll make it happen.
Cool. Well, appreciate you having me on to chit chat and go over that really strange glitch, or maybe he opened a portal.
Who knows, man?
Interdimensional. I don't know.